Welcome to the panel on women in original content. My name is Katarina Baron-Kowalewski, and I am a director, producer, and I worked a lot on the branded side. So I worked with brands like Swarovski and Mercedes, mainly in Europe. And since 2 years, I'm in America, and I'm glad to be moderating this today. And I think it's best if everybody introduces themselves in the panel, so maybe you could do a quick introduction of 2 minutes.
You should mention that you're also an actress,
okay.
And that you moved here from pick Los Angeles from Paris. See the things you find out. My name's Jeannie Wolf, and I am known as an entertainment journalist and as a media coach. And I've been providing a woman providing content for a long, long time. I do notice a change in the air. I do think women feel a sense of empowerment, a sense of promise, a sense of opportunity. And at the same time, when there's change, there's always frustration and confusion and bewilderment about where everybody's going and where you should go next. We're very popular now, and one of the reasons I could prove it is that when I do these panels, usually they're saying, oh, I got stuck with a women's panel again. And now people want to be on the women's panel, and people want to watch them because they need to know about us. They need to include us so they look woke about gender inclusion. They need to include us because there are so many, many opportunities now, and you need artists to fulfill them. So with new acceptance, I think what's important is that we all learn to professionalize ourselves, our approach, our content, everything we do. If we wanted to get accepted and we want to get noticed, we have to do it all better than we ever did before. I'm a very good name dropper. Mostly what I do is talk to famous people in all fields, especially entertainment. So you could go on Saturday Evening Post right now and see an interview of mine with Leslie Stahl, or with or Marcia Gay Harden. Coming up is Reba McEntire. On American Airlines' Celebrated Living site, you could see an interview with Rita Moreno, with Angela Lansbury. Coming up, Helen Mirren. I have talked to some of the most successful and powerful women in the world. I've learned a lot from them. Many of these women have become mentors of mine without even knowing it. And I've learned a lot also from my 19-year-old self. When I was 19, I decided I wanted to do a television program. And I approached the public television station, and I sold them on the idea of my own show. I went to a very big department store chain and sold them on the idea of sponsoring it. And when I look back, I love the way I was then. I totally believed. I believed in the idea. I never thought, oh, I'm a kid, I'm a novice, I've never done any of this, they won't listen to me. The idea was so strong that persistence and drive kept me going. I went from there to Good Morning America, where I did a lot of scoops. Entertainment Tonight recruited me at the height of their invention of syndicated television, when we kind of owned Hollywood. And I was the first reporter at Entertainment Tonight to produce her own stories. So when you'd see me with Cher or Gwyneth Paltrow or Meryl Streep or any of those people, it was my take on that star. And the fact that I produced and wrote my own stories taught me how to do what most of the people on this panel have done, which is just about everything. We used to call it hyphenates, and it seems to me that now all of us are almost have to be hyphenates. People ask me, was it hard to be a competitor at Entertainment Tonight? And is it hard now to compete in the arena where you're going after the biggest stars and the biggest stories? And all you can say is, are you kidding? Many of the stars I talked to say they didn't realize their own power, and many created a lot of breakthroughs. The way I feel about it, though, is if we are being invited, if we believe in our possibilities more than ever, if women are being considered in a new way, we have to stop looking back. We have to put aside some resentment, put aside some anger, and do work that is original and undeniable.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Katie Koblitz. I am the head of independent content at Apparently Jack. This is my partner, Jacqueline Legan.
Hello.
I'll let her talk to the company a bit more. I come from the world of independent film, narrative and documentary film. I actually lived and worked in Cleveland, Ohio for about 7 years, unexpectedly. Moved out to Los Angeles, met my very brilliant and talented partner, and we partnered on this company together. We work to, in short, basically tell stories, make character-driven pieces, and focus on representation in front of and behind the camera. We're not limited to a certain type of content. We do series, we do features, we're all over the place, just whatever serves the story, essentially. And we do branded and unbranded content. That's the quick, it's a crazy path. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. Sort of going in many different directions and getting work where you can, and eventually making the work that you really want to make. So I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing now.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline, the founder of Apparently Jack with Katie. She's right here. She just spoke. I come from the short film and advertising and marketing world. So basically when we put our two selves together, we get both a cinematic version of marketing and branded content entertainment. But the company was really founded on the idea of representation behind and in front of the camera and telling intersectional stories, helping amplify the voices of underrepresented people and stories. And we're obviously women owned, and we make sure that our sets are all inclusive. We try and give everybody, a seat at the table when we're going. Ideally, not everyone's dream. Our dream would be to make independent content that's, storyline driven and amazing, but we know that the independent film world isn't necessarily filled with people handing you blank checks. So to really combine that with brands and bring them to the table and say, hey, look at the audience you're trying to reach. Don't just tell a standard commercial story where it's a vignette or when it's, just a montage of ideas to sell a specific product. Why don't you really try and grow your audience? Why don't you tell a story that people want to watch, that they want to be entertained by, that'll teach them something, and then really falls in line with your brand messaging. So that's kind of what we do at the company. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Talia Kokar, and I'm the Vice President of Content at Mammoth Media, which is a mobile entertainment network that focuses on creating original content experiences through various platforms on mobile. Right now, super focused on the millennial and teen demographic. And that's where I spent a lot of the time in the beginning of my career, is researching and studying a lot of the mobile behaviors for the younger demographic and the amount of time that they spend on their phone, running a bunch of focus groups to really understand the behaviors, why they consume content, why they consume experiences the way they do on mobile, and expanding on that in the direction that we take from the projects that I've worked on since and the companies that we work with as well. I come from an English major background. I always loved storytelling, reading, content consumption in any way, and then really just started straight into the mobile space after that, and since then expanding on different verticals in the mobile space and how to tell stories and content experiences that are unique or user-generated, and how do you bring those experiences to mobile for people. Focus on many different demographics across my career, but mostly been focusing on the teenage demographic now. And that's really what I've been focusing on, and what I'm really passionate about is we're all aware of how much time we all spend on our phones, especially the younger demographic, and how do we, create and deliver those experiences for the younger demographic that's going to be growing and they're in their most influential stages. How do we tell stories that they want to consume in the time they're spending their most and the places that they're spending their most time? So that's really what I've been passionate about and what our company's been focusing on and trying to expand in that vertical. And that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about.
Great. I want to start this all on a very positive note, and I want to ask you what you think is the biggest opportunity in original content for women at the moment. I mean, we mentioned that it's a great time for women right now, but what do you think are the real opportunities? Where are they? And, in your fields, and where do you see women succeeding at the moment or in the next years?
Well, I think it's a great time for original content in general. I think right now there's many companies, digital, traditional, everywhere, that is trying to create more original content experiences. I mean, you guys maybe have seen what Netflix is spending on original content through the next year, and it's quite fascinating how many stories want to be told. And I think it's because of the fact that we're in this space, and we talk a lot about diversity and about women and people who want to hear women's stories and have the underrepresented stories be told. And I think that's what's really bringing this desire for a lot of original content to be told. It's coming from the fact that consumers want to be seeing those stories, and that is giving the opportunity for everyone, including women, because right now we're a big topic of conversation, which is amazing. And I think in telling the stories that people want to consume. So across the board, and even on specifically mobile, greenlighting those kinds of experiences and those stories, with the fact that original content is such a big space and a big opportunity, women being a part of telling those stories, since there are so many working women, women who are consuming content in various ways, and giving them that experience. I think that's why it's such an important time.
Yeah, Netflix seems to be the giant we all point to, who's spending the most money, taking the most chances, hiring away the most people. But that means that there are more shows, there are more opportunities. And partly there are more opportunities because the other big giants go, well, we'll catch up with them. They're not the only one who's going to get Emmys. They're not the only one who's going to get audience. And so they're greenlighting more and different kinds of programs. And in every case, they're more open to ideas that are unique. In every case, they're more open to someone beyond that little pool of talent, a very narrow pool of talent that were considered the TV writers, the film writers, the film directors, the film behind the scenes people. That's opened up. And what always interests me is so many people saying, I can't get anyone to listen to me. I can't get a job. I can't get an agent. I can't get anything sold. I can't get placed. And then I deal with a lot of top executives and top actresses and top producers, and they're going, I can't find people who really want to work. I can't find people who have a unique voice. I can't find people who are talented and will back their talent with discipline. So someplace in the middle, it's a matter of communication. More than just going to conferences and networking, it's finding your way in, and it's doing what, as I said, my 19-year-old self said, they're going to listen. I'll make them listen. I'll find a way.
I'll also say that I slightly disagree with those people who say they can't find people who have diverse stories or who want to direct or who want to be behind a camera. We're all out there.
They're not bumping into them.
They're not bumping into them, but they're also not looking hard enough, I don't think, because we're all out there, and you need to give an opportunity to the people who are rising, which is why I think it takes companies and the smaller, fish in the sea to say, oh, we're going to start by hiring, inclusive and representational people both behind and in front of, so that they can then get the opportunity with the big fish like the Netflix and the Amazon as well. Because, I think a lot of the women in this room will say we're all out there, it's just need to find us. But once you cross a certain threshold, it becomes easier for you. And I feel like part of the opportunity in original content for women is having, if you've crossed that threshold, hiring other women and mentoring them and bringing them up. And that's how we grow, and that's how we get that opportunity in original content, is because once you've got your foot in the door, you need to help somebody else get their foot in the door.
Yeah, I just saw Estrella coming in. Estrella, could you maybe introduce yourself in 2 minutes?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was in the other Guernsey.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Estella Gabriel. I'm the founder of a platform called Second Screen that is launching in January of next year. And Second Screen repackages, rebrands, and redistributes independent films to essentially view like a series for the mobile culture. Unfortunately, indie films don't necessarily have an audience with that demographic, so we're giving them a place to monetize and expose their films in a way that's compelling. So we're a platform in the sense that we're putting together users with their audience, viewers with filmmakers, and so we just take our fee, so we're not buying content, and we're a streaming platform, essentially like Netflix. I'm just using an example to sort of describe. And then we have a social aspect for discovery and engagement, where you essentially can see what your friends are watching and discover based on who you follow.
I wanted to pick up on the last answer on Jacqueline and ask you all, how do you support other women in your role, and what do you do or try to do to get other women in good roles and in content, in as directors, motivated to produce, to be behind the camera and to get their stories out there?
Well, yeah, when you're in a position to hire people and to crew up, we have many conversations about, like, here you usually have your go-to people, sort of like, okay, we're really used to working with Kyle and Johnny and Sam, and then we say, okay, stop, who else can we work with? Let's not forget the other people that we've met who are looking for work, and trying to make that, just basically make it sort of like a rotation of people, and when you get into a familiar working relationship, taking the discomfort of trying someone new, and seeing if that fits, especially if it is a woman. It's good to give women a chance behind the camera. Cinematographers, first ACs, gaffers, like those are roles that are traditionally not held by women. So we do a lot of pausing and trying to think outside of the box, because even within the framework that we've established, you don't want to ever get too pigeonholed. You can think that you're putting in all this effort and you're still not. There's another step to sort of take that logic and take that thinking. And then going out and we're always networking and meeting new people and curious about what they do and how we can get people involved.
I will also say there's a trickle effect. When we are working with somebody who might be the head of a department, and we ask, do you have any women on your team that you can bring in? We've heard before, like, oh no, sorry, I don't know any female gaffers, so I'll bring in my team. We'll say, oh great, we've got a list of 5, we'll introduce you to them. And then these women get work on the next couple of jobs that DP is working on, because now they know a few female gaffers, or a sound mixer, or a full camera department, or we hire a DP and we're asking a female DP to fill up her team with women. And I know this is a panel on women, but I'll also say people of color, whether that means a man or a woman, because we're all in this together, and that intersectionality is so important. That's how people get the next job, is you introduce them to someone, even if you're not working on a job, listen around, oh, I'm looking for a director for my project. Sure, maybe you're not working with our company on this, but here's a list of, 5 directors who are, female and or female identifying, or women or people of color, and, contact them, see what you think, and they'll keep them on their radar. So I think that it's everyone working together. It's, we're fortunate in that we're in a position of being able to hire people. That's part of the reason we started the company, was to have the opportunity to amplify voices and to hire people and get people in there. But sharing people with other companies is another way to make sure that people get hired.
Yeah, and something we're always super mindful of also is while we're working to break the status quo, it's also not at the expense of never hiring white men. Like, you can't become a sexist because you're so supportive of women, like a sexist toward men.
And if they get all of the jobs and you've introduced them to an amazing female team, guess what? Those females are going to get the jobs with the white men on their next jobs. So
yeah, it all works, but it's again just going back to that not getting comfortable. So not saying we're hiring all women. We've worked with a lot of people who say, I'm not hiring any men on my set, and it's like, well, that's not okay. Like to say I'm not hiring this type of person on my set is fundamentally not okay. So it just takes more work to constantly be adapting. You know what I mean? Like, again, not getting into those rhythms.
And just to take that a step further, because from a hiring perspective, you also have to look at, as women, you have to make sure that you are asking for what you deserve, because what I've come across is that there are men who ask for more even though they don't deserve more, but because they're asking and because they're negotiating, it's hard to, I can see why it happens so much in the industry now, being in a position where, where I am hiring. And so, I have to constantly be battling and like thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to give it to you just because you're asking for it, where, with women, we need to make sure that we're aggressive in asking for what we deserve.
One of the things that I'm proudest of is the list of interns and assistants and people who I've worked with who went on to really great positions. One woman who was the head of documentaries at CBS for a while said, Jeannie, when I first came to work for you, at lunchtime I used to cry every day in the ladies' room. But when I got to CBS, I was the only one who knew how to do all of these things. The guy now who is, yes, white male, who is executive producer of Criminal Minds said, I couldn't stop shaking when I first came to work for you. But little by little, when I hit the writer's room, I knew what to do. So I have had a list of people who skip several job categories that many of those people now, if they take off their shirts, you'll see the whip marks, because I am not easy and I'm not interested. I know enough slobs in the business, enough undedicated, lazy, uninteresting people that I am not going to foster any more of those people. So if you decide that you love this and that you don't have to exactly know what time you're going to be on or off or what you're going to do that day. The other thing that I'm very proud of is that I discovered that I could teach people how to handle media, how to give speeches, how to appear on television, how to write, how to even write emails. And so I've become a media trainer. That was something I sort of stumbled into, but I've become really good at that. And so now, the people who run the forum for Deadline Hollywood come to me. I help them put their intros together. I help them learn how to tell stories. I teach them how to be effective, and I say to all the organizations, especially women's organizations, don't send out the person with the highest title, president, vice president. Send out the person who's the best communicator. And if it isn't you, become the best communicator. You need to be able to present yourself on every level. And I've taught countless people and continue to teach countless people how to do that, whether they pay a lot of money because they're sent to me by a big studio, or one guy who came to me recently who said, I said, I won't teach anybody free. It never works because they don't value it. I said, how much do you charge when you do a physical training? He said, $150. I said, okay, that's your price. Whatever you charge. I don't want to do anything. I don't mind doing a favor, but I want people to value what I do, but I also want to help people who really need help.
Talia, can you answer this too?
Yeah. I mean, I think beyond the powers of being able to hire and bring, more female staff into your team, and I think the opportunities that were given to me in getting my foot in the door at a predominantly male company at the very beginning, and from there, really being able to be heard and being able to, execute at projects that I wanted to execute at, and the chance being given to me and the being heard, I think, was really an important part, and something that I work on supporting with everyone that I've brought on to be visionaries or creators or leaders or managers or anything in the field, specifically, for content creation and content that I work on at Mammoth. And I think that's really provided a great opportunity for me to not only hire that staff. I mean, we have more than 85% female content team at Mammoth Media, and it's really grown to that point. But beyond that, having and allowing those people that we hire and we bring on to be managers, to be content creators, leaders, visionaries, to be creating the content that empowers them to do more. So I think that is, whether there is a lot of women that still are very intimidated when it comes to working in certain settings, and I've seen that from some of the people that I've hired. I've seen that from some of the people that I've worked at competitive companies with, and so I think the opportunity of where I've seen that most growth is supporting their roles and them being heard and the stories that they want to tell and the projects that they want to work on, and which then strengthens them to realize that there is more and the opportunity to grow and to really expand and to aggressively ask for their worth and all those things. And I think it's just a matter of guiding and supporting when you have that upper hand and when you have that opportunity to allow other people to do the same and to get their foot in the door and to fight to continuously get to that point. And I think, in specifically content, it's a great way that strengthens you to do that more because you're telling stories about people for people.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, and I really want to echo that. I think, as a woman, you've had so few opportunities to mirror yourself against someone in a higher up position, so we're all dealing with quite a bit of this imposter syndrome that we're battling internally. So to have those exposures, to have those people who are believing in you and saying, no, you can do this, and you're like, I can? Yeah, you can do this. It's so important. So.
And it's not just lower down people who feel like they don't have opportunity. Reese Witherspoon tells a great story. She said, I was sent this script as an actress, and I'm reading this script, and I thought, well, who would want to do this? I don't know whether to say no to this. And Reese said she found out that 6 or 8 of her A-list actress friends had been sent the same script, and were all considering it just because they weren't offered something else. And her husband, who's an agent, said, you love books, you love storytelling, you better go get some books, buy the rights, and produce your own films. And she produced Wild. Now, of course, we know about Little Eyes, all the Emmys it won. So it's not just people you never heard of who feel that they don't have the opportunity to do what they want to do and have to figure out a way to get past the fear and past they'll never listen to me and just do it.
To just piggyback a little bit, you were talking about people listening to you and you having that voice for the first time. Even if you're not in a position to hire anybody or hire a woman, if you're listening to the people around you, let's say you're on set, one of my favorite things to do is just talk to a PA on set and say, what is it you're actually interested in doing? Because let's all be honest, they're not planning on being a PA for the rest of their lives. None of us were. So, I'm interested in, first ADing, or I'm interested in directing or DPing. And if you then take that PA and introduce them to the DP or to the first AD and say, hey, so they're kind of PAing on set today, but their real interest lies in first ADing. Do you think that maybe you could, help them, tell them something, let them shadow you if they're not working on anything? Then the next day that PA can say, oh, I'm on a path to do something else. And just by listening and introducing them to somebody else, you're giving them the opportunity to be heard and move up in the world.
And one last add to that is, for myself, I started off as an actress and then as a screenwriter. And as a screenwriter, I was presented an award by Showtime. I had these really great scripts that were female-led, women of color, and I could not, I just couldn't get my foot in the door that way, and that's why I started this company, was to create a platform for someone like myself, where there isn't much opportunity to be able to create in a way that's, like I said, consumable to the mobile generation. And so, you know, create those opportunities for yourself. And yeah.
And since you are in the seat of like deciding a little bit what kind of content you're looking for, I wanted to know what is a great piece of content for you and what are you looking for at the moment? Like what are the things that spark your interest and what are you getting excited about if you see it? What is a great example? What makes a great piece of original content?
Somebody answer
Great
that, 'cause I'm gonna
story. I
write
mean,
it down.
it's
now,
really-
and I'm going to have a bit.
It's a
somebody
real
answer that.
story.
Give
It's
me the list of
something
what
that-
makes
Yeah, something that moves you.
Hits, whether artistically or popularity, hits are magic. You can have the best people, you can have all new people. You can have an idea that you've seen before, you can have an idea that you thought no one's going to listen to. So you have to decide sort of the message you want to get out there, or a message other people are getting out there that you want to add to. But there is no formula. If there was, none of us would have time to sit here. We'd be, you know, reaping Emmys and Oscars and checks.
I think that the standards for, you know, good storytelling and stories that evoke emotion and, you know, tap into those feelings of why people want to consume content, stories, media, movies, whatever it may be. I think they stay true to, like, that's what tells a good story. It's how do you evoke emotion out of a consumer, out of a reader, out of a viewer. And I think that's what we're all trying to do, is evoke different kinds of emotion, whether it be from mobile experiences and telling stories and documentaries and mobile ways, or journalism, or various ways of how we tell those stories. I think now in digital, it's a matter of how you tell those stories to the medium or the platform, and the formula for creating the story stays the same, or evoking that emotion stays the same, but it's a matter of how you fit it on the platform that people are consuming it on that is unique to each experience. So mobile is one thing, and the TV screens are another thing, and I think, you know, there's content in every way and shape and form, and so I think that it has a lot to do with how and where. In terms of the types of content and what we're really looking to tell, it's just a matter of, you know, stories that people are passionate about telling and bringing those to light. I think it goes to the core of everything else we're discussing. I mean, just an example is there's a series on our app called Modern Dating. I started writing it because I was just frustrated with modern dating, and I wanted to write a series that really came from the true experiences of dating in Los Angeles. And it's one of the most read, most engaged series on the platform because it comes from a true place of passion and storytelling and relatability. And so the stories that we try to greenlit is exactly that, are stories that come from real people who are struggling with certain things, whether it's families of divorce or you know, struggles of coming out and different stories like that. And that's, I think, the types of stories. And in a mobile medium, it feels so real and so native. So we're really trying to tell the stories that are perfect for that platform, as well as the ones that people have passions for telling. And I think that's what makes good content right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a moving target. It's always been, and then now you have just this divergence of platforms and everything changing so rapidly. Something sort of like a sad truth, I think, is that the audience has to be ready to receive your message. That's something that I've had to learn. You know, like if I believe in something and I really want to just make other people believe it, that doesn't necessarily work. So like a coming out story in your example, in the 80s,
Yes.
how many people would care? Like, would that get sold? Probably not. So now we can, you know, I think that I kind of hate saying this, but like pushing the envelope in increments seems to be more effective, because if you're pulling back and just saying like, okay, I'm just pushing this much further, then it's actually going to get out to people, and then we have a dialogue nationally and globally, and then we can push it to the next step a little bit. And again, that pains me a little bit to say, because you want to stay true to the message that you want to tell. But the reality is the audience has to be ready to receive that message. In terms of, you know, like social issues and progression in general, but then also I think that something I've learned is there are ebbs and flows, largely based on economy, honestly. And if people are feeling good about the world and everything's kind of dandy and great, like they're up to see some drama, they're up to feel emotional, see some dark content. When things feel bad, people sort of like lighter lighter material. And this is not, there are exceptions, there are a ton of exceptions. This is not a totally firm rule, but it's a trend that I've noticed.
You need a cheerleader. You need someone who believes. Sarah Gilbert, she created The Talk. She's executive producer of The Talk. She goes to the network with an idea to bring back Roseanne. Nobody's going to watch an old show. Nobody cares. It was not only number one, but it had every network sitting in a room going, what else should we bring back? Murphy Brown, this show, that show, because you know that if something gets accepted, everyone else is going, well, let's follow that formula. So you have to have sort of a crazy belief, and then you have to test it out. And access, of course.
Yeah.
If we're also talking in terms of like, what do we want to see? We were actually talking about this yesterday. We're developing something because I've been really frustrated with watching shows, and we're talking longer form content right now, or that's what I'm speaking to, is that we're seeing shows and like, oh, that's about the alcoholic mom, or that's about the girl with, you know, depression, or that's about the, you know, interracial relationship. And I'm so tired of seeing shows where like there's one thing and like that's it, like that's what the point of the show is. Well, guess what? I know plenty of people who come from families with alcoholism, mental illness, interracial relationships, you know, job issues, poverty, also dealing with people, you know, like they're so multidimensional, and we don't see a lot of multidimensional shows. I will say, sure, there's a multidimensional character out there, but that's what that show's about. You don't see shows filled with multidimensional people, which I think goes back to the importance of representation and being able to watch a show and have multiple people, you know, like have all of us on this panel watch one show and say, oh, I see myself in one of those characters. Instead, you know, you see yourself in one show, you see yourself in another show, I see myself in a show, and now we've got, yes, a network with tons of different shows, but nothing we're all watching kind of as a community together, which I think also helps in moving, you know, issues and things forward. So for me, that's what I'm looking for, and luckily we're in a position where we're trying to create that. So, but I'd love everyone to be creating that. I'd love that to be the thing that everyone picks up on and is like, oh, it's working with this person, one person's championing it, let's all make shows that, you know, can reach a wide variety of audiences in one hit.
Do you still feel a stop from like bigger gatekeepers, like investors, like people that you depend on, or networks where you feel like we want to break that wall?
Yeah.
Now we're like already
Of course.
developing, producing, having this
Unfortunately, they
stories.
have to see it work in order to then greenlight the rest of it. You know, you need to put all of your blood, sweat, and tears into, and your money into making something work, so someone can say, "Oh, that was working. Great, we'll do it over here and make $1 million, you know, budget per episode when you did that for all of the money you had in the world." And you know, then it like takes off, and you have to hope to get back in there and be like, "Oh, you saw our show, you liked our show, great, can we have that $1 million per episode and we'll make something else for you?" But yeah, there's tons of, you know, barriers by which people want to see something that works and is successful, which I think speaks to Katie saying incremental. That also works in terms of the content you're creating. Like, okay, this reality show works for them. How do you rejigger that reality show to also incorporate something that you're going towards so that they can see that the model works and someone wants to watch that, but you can change it slightly and get creative with it so that you can open doors for new types of content.
And I wanted to ask Talia and Estella about the future and the next generations a little bit. So on the one hand, targeting millennial and Gen Z audiences, and on the other hand, the mobile aspect of it, if it's, you know, really the future of how we will consume, and what is the difference, and are there, you know, specifics that you're looking for?
Yeah. Sorry. So I mean, the millennial demographic spends around 9 hours a day on their phone, and I think that is crazy. And I think, I mean, I definitely spend a lot of time on my phone, and I think just knowing that it's definitely like mobile is now, mobile is a part of the conversation, and it's definitely a part of the near future because those millennials are going to be growing, and that's the platform they've been used to consuming and established relationships on, established experiences on, and it's only going to grow from there. I mean, you can't really say where it's going to go 10 years from now. I think 10 years ago, we knew that it was heading in this direction, but I don't think we imagined that it would be as mobile-centric as it is now. So future-wise, it's always something that you're working towards and understanding the new trends and working towards them. I think in terms of reaching and creating content for the mobile, for the millennial demographic on mobile, it's definitely relevant, and it's the current platform which a lot of consumption is taking place. I mean, in some focus groups that we ran in the past, we would ask some of the teenagers how they consume their TV shows or where they watch content. And the feedback that they gave was, oh, I watch it on like Hulu or Netflix. Okay, do you watch movies or TV shows? Well, I watch more TV shows. Why? Well, because it's shorter and I can take breaks in between. Okay, well, what do you do when you watch those TV shows? Are you like doing anything else? Yeah, I'm texting my friends, probably on Snapchat, on Instagram, maybe sending an email, like all these kinds of things. And it's a matter of like, you know, there's so much interruption taking place in the way that you're consuming content because you're watching it on this mobile experience, or you're consuming it with this mobile experience that's attached to you. And so just knowing that you're competing for that screen time. So you're competing for that 9 hours a day when it comes to mobile, and how you do that on those platforms, and the strategies or the features that I think you have to either create or build into your product or your strategy, or it varies, you know, on the channel and the medium and how you're trying, what kind of content you're creating, who you're trying to target, but it's a variety of things from like in-app push notification in-app messaging, push notification strategies, the type of content that you're creating, product features, to really stay relevant. Because again, you're competing for screen time, you're competing for, there's entertainment in many different ways at the touch of your fingertips. And that entertainment could be you swiping across Tinder, and it could be you consuming a show. So that entertainment is like everywhere. And so it's a matter of how you compete for that time on mobile, and mobile being a huge focus right now.
It's really good. I personally, well, what we're doing is we're taking all of that data, and we are, you know, creating an atmosphere based on that data, creating an experience based on that data. So, so it's why we've included this social aspect, to keep people in the app, to discover in a new way. Like, for example, with Netflix, how many of you really love the recommendations that you get from their algorithms? I know I don't. I personally watch based on what my friends are watching. So, you know, the structure that we've created is very much like Instagram. I mean, it's almost, and it was designed by a 21-year-old. She's over there filming right now. So, you know, it's about really understanding that, and I think the studios are really, really struggling, because I have meetings all the time with, you know, executives that are like, we are trying to figure out this problem. They're helping us because they're like hoping that this is the answer, because it's a huge problem. And so, yeah, you know, as Talia said, you know, mobile is now. It's not even the future anymore. It's the present. Streaming is the present. And the studios, they're still trying to catch up to Netflix, and Netflix is not even the future anymore. So, so mobile is, so it's a really exciting time for us in the sense that it's, this is a great opportunity for up-and-coming platforms to really make their place in the industry.
And to add to it, what methods do you use to get visibility? Are you using influencers, social ads, press, analytics? What are your methods to get it out there in an innovative way, or, you know, in a future-facing way?
Well, for our product and our platforms, it varies on the content or the story that we're trying to tell. It's a variety of ads, because a lot of our platform is mobile, and we know that a lot of people are spending their time on other mobile apps, games, networks, Facebook, Instagram, so it's a lot of ad targeting. Beyond that, we do work with influencers on an original content case-by-case basis. And press is attached to a lot of the bigger stories that we tell and some of our original IP that grow to being a bigger series, or any partnerships we do with external IP with studios. So we've launched things with Archie Comics and a bigger Disney partnership. So there's a lot of things that are in the pipeline, and I think the methods that we use are a variety depending on the piece of content that is, anything from social to ads to influencer engagement. So I'd say all three for mobile, at least I can speak for.
Okay, great. I think I would like to open it up to the audience if you have any questions, maybe. If not, okay, great.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I have a question for you. When you are trying to hire a crew, and I do agree with you that you shouldn't shut it off to any specific type of person, how do you get around dealing with unions? Because there aren't always a huge amount of people of color on, the union tends to handle this if you're allowed to hire. So how do you deal with that?
We do a lot of non-union shoots and help people get into the union that way, to go from smaller, for smaller projects. For larger union shoots, like we have the people that we know who are a part of the union. We do know a lot of women who are in the union. We go to them first and see who they have on their list of people as department heads. But I will say that helping, up and coming women and people of color get into the unions is something that we can do at the size that we are at the moment. Yes, because you can give them work days. Depends on which union, but mostly you can give them a letter with work days that they worked on your shoot, so that they can say that later on that they've worked those amount of days on a shoot, and some unions allow them in.
Okay.
For Katie, talking about inclusion and all that, how do you guys do like the pitching? I mean, do you receive any kind of pitching? Is it like a way that you guys have it? Email? I'm just always the question about.
Yeah, it's really fluid, honestly, and we are doing it sort of both ways. So we're getting material from writers and then finding the place that it fits, or bringing on clients and asking them what they want, and then going to the writers. So it's sort of like keeping a working Rolodex of people to reach out to in those situations. But yeah, we're getting material in person, emails, sometimes like random, like where did those emails come from? They just kind of like
us?
Yeah, show up. There's no one way, honestly.
Do you have, does it make a difference to you guys if that content creator has representation or not?
No. No.
We've worked with reps, and we've also worked with people who, say, hey, I'd like you to look at this content, and then, can you contact my rep? We've done it that way as well. But
yeah, and that said, it's important to keep in mind that we also can only do what we can do. You know what I mean? So if we love a script or love a piece of work, sometimes we can try really, really, really hard to get it made, and we still can't get it made. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that we don't enjoy it and we don't believe it shouldn't be out there. Like, we're also just trying to make it happen in tandem with the creators. And we're still, I think, hopefully very, very helpful to them. But hitting our own ceilings and, like facing our own challenges. But yeah, we're just doing our damnedest. Can you say damn? I said damn.
Okay, over here.
Many people mentioned about things get easier once you reach that threshold, okay? But the challenge is obviously getting to that threshold in the first place. So, especially if you come, I think, from outside the industry to wanting to produce content that you know is innovative, that comes out of sound research and so on. So my question is, basically, what are the steps that you can take, or that one can take that can help facilitate that process to even get to the threshold?
Well, one thing is creating your own content, even in small bits. Creating, whether it's writing or an internet piece, or creating something that you can show so that you do get heard, or you have something that can be noticed. And the other thing is trying to look for positions that may be lower down, but kind of reading the boss's track record or the studio's track record of promotion. Or the other thing is, when you get someplace in what was supposed to be a smaller job, learning and proving yourself indispensable. I don't know anybody who feels they have enough hands or enough hours. So if there's someone in their organization who you're overlooking but comes up with work, comes up with ideas, comes up with ways to help forward the story or forward the process, maybe, they'll give you a chance, but you're really giving yourself a chance. Make sense?
And just to add to that, Second Screen is, it's a platform right now for already produced content, independent films, and we're repackaging them. But we want to be, and we're headed towards being a place where an independent filmmaker can go to an investor and say, give me that $1 million, this is my package, this is who we have, this is the story, and for them to be able to create like a season 1 in that 10-minute episode format for, and to be able to put it on our platform and to be able to monetize it, where we're, putting together, as I said, users with stories. So that's already happening essentially on YouTube, but make sure it's great quality. Make sure that you have a good little team behind you.
Can I ask what threshold you're looking to cross at the moment?
Well, I'm an anthropologist turned documentary filmmaker and doing content. So, and my film came out of my research with ed donors. So I've been researching ed donors for the past 4 years. After I interviewed about 20 of them, I'm like, oh my God, this has got to be a film because these young women don't have clues to what they're getting themselves into, whether it's mental health complications or whether it's thinking 20 years down the road, God, I feel like I sold my children. So I have all these stories I've shot about. I have a whole rough cut of this film, and I've been just trying to get somebody to listen to me to say this film needs to be funded to finish it. So I
Come talk to us afterwards. We're working with a fertility company right now.
okay. I don't know if the fertility company's going to want to see my film, but okay, I will absolutely do that. Thank you.
Yeah, and another thing I would say is for my approach was to, I was basically like stuck back home in Cleveland. There was a tax incentive that came to Ohio. So I thought, okay, this is what I have to work with. This is not what I expected. Took a retail job selling computers for 2 years, but also found people whose work I respected, who are obviously higher up than me because I was no one. And I don't want to say stalked, but found them. And offered, I'll work for you for free. How can I help you? And I think that in those times, the important thing is to put your head down and work, not for a day and not for a week, years, because the people who are in the positions to hire people need to hire people that they can trust, because they're busy and overwhelmed. And it can be frustrating when you're taking someone on to help you with a project and you're busy, you're running around, and they're saying, well, hey, read my script, and hey, look at this video I shot, and like me, and it's that there's a time and a place for that. But I think building the trust with the people that you really respect and really want to work with is the whole foundation.
Trust, respect, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
this person comes through. I
Right.
better come through for them. Or
Yeah.
what else have they got to say?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of old school or Midwestern. I don't know. I don't know if that works as well out here, but it's. I think it does. I think that ultimately people want to surround themselves with people that they feel are solid and are going to be there for them.
I've done it.
Yeah.
So, and then just to add to that, I really would suggest that you consider not going into a feature film, but making it into, shorter, bite-sized pieces, because there was a $4 billion invested in indie films in 2017, and there was only a 2% return, and that's a Sundance stat. So it's just, unfortunately, viewing habits have changed, and it's tough.
And just to add to that, another question: how would you like pictures and things to arrive to you in a different form than original screenplays, because talking about all the other original content formats, there are maybe other ways to present it and maybe other ways for you to receive pitches or treatments. What is the original approach to that?
We've received people who've shot examples on their iPhones, people who just write a synopsis. We've read full scripts, just pitches via, someone standing there and saying, hey, I've got this idea, what do you think about it, So I think that there's any number of ways to pitch somebody, as long as you have their attention to begin with. Don't interrupt them while they're eating.
I've never seen a visual added asset, whether it's a sizzle or a reel or whatever. I've never seen that hurt. I think that a script, especially if it's novel, even for super creative people, can be hard to visualize. And if you've shot something, you're conveying your moods and your tones, but you're also showing that, like, I'm really serious about this. Like, I took the weekend and got my friends together and called in the favors, and I made this happen. I think that helps a lot.
And Talia, how is it for your platforms?
Yeah, so our platform, Yarn specifically, is consumption of storytelling and delivery of storytelling via text message conversations, but a large part of that is multimedia stories as well. So we have stories that include production and telling of stories that we have full scripts for. So I think for us, it's way shorter form, and it's very bite-sized, and the way to communicate and pitch those kinds of ideas has generally been, like you said, talking either in person and pitching an idea, and we see where things go from there, but having a built-out idea as to why this piece of content, why our platform. And I think specifically to the fact that it is a mobile native experience and a mobile native platform, it's like, why does this make sense for Yarn? And why this story? And beyond that, I mean, we've received pitches in terms of treatments and synopsis and full scripts. We haven't necessarily received more of like here's a full production or a rough cut of a series, but I think solely because we are so specific to the way that you create for our format, and it's very bite-sized and digital. But I think receiving any kind of form of an idea or a script is the way that we've looked into content.
I think you also have to count on having patience. Two of the people who work with me, Shep Morgan and Matthew Hayes, are here today, and they'll tell you we talk to the top people in the world. And everyone, whether it's Moonlighting or La La Land or even A Star Is Born, will tell you this took 10 years. It took 5 years before someone would read the book. It took 6 years before a star would say yes. But when I interview someone and they say, never give up, or I never give up, I don't believe them. I think, my motto is never let them see you giving up. So you can give up every once in a while, but you can't do it publicly. You've got to pay attention to all those stories of the top films, and the Viola Davis just couldn't get parts except for the stage. I can't tell you, person after person. Gwyneth Paltrow was laughed at when she came up with Goop. You have to stick with an idea. You have to give up, and you have to observe that it's not just little poor me who isn't getting listened to. At every level, it's hard to get listened to. At every level, it's hard to ask someone for money. At every level, it's hard to get support and approval.
And I think everyone loves that "I told you so" moment, and so I think that persistence is the biggest part of it. I mean, I think there's been so many projects in my personal career where I've just really been persistent and gotten so many no's, and then one day I literally bit my tongue into an "I told you so" moment. So I think it's a matter of really being persistent.
And don't say "I told you so."
Yeah, and don't say "I told you so." Bite your tongue. But
you also had a really good point. I just want to say, know your audience, as in like who are you pitching to?
Yeah.
So don't pitch to a feature film to her platform, and if you know what the types of stories that we tell, go specifically to a company that you have a shot at, because that's their audience. Because if you're pitching us, I don't even have an example of what you would pitch us and not be right, but there's a little bit of respect in that as well, as not wasting someone's time by saying, hey, I've got this great thing, and then us saying, wait a second, we don't do short form content like this, you really should have been pitching to Mammoth, you know, like know who you're pitching to and cater it in that direction so that you're respectful of everyone's time.
Definitely.
Yeah, I really want to harp on the patience thing. You know, by the nature of panels and any speech, anyone who stands up and says like, I did a thing, like the whole nature is to be succinct and to make it clean and streamline the story. And so for us to stand up here and say, well, I did feature film for 10 years and then we partnered and everything's great, like it's such an oversimplification and no one sees the individual experience of trying and trying and trying by yourself to make this thing work for 2 years and crying on your couch and sitting in your pajamas and like, you know, like no one sees that besides you and no one talks about that because that's not glamorous. And people love to sit up and say, hi, I told you I did it, I made it. But it takes forever, you know what I mean? Like it's grueling, it's insane. You have to be a little nuts for sure to be in this industry, like into that adrenaline and into that chase. And I think it's so important to highlight that, like, and it's not even the movie version of the struggle, you know, like where you have your makeup on and you have a tear and with the, like it's ugly and it's raw and it's every journey is unique and uncomfortable in different ways. You just got to be like, wow, this sucks right now, you know, like this is really, really, really tough. Like let's come up with a new thing tomorrow and keep adapting.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great end note and maybe end question. What is keeping you going? What is keeping you being passionate or over those challenging times? And what are the things that, you know, always made you jump the next edge or whatever was in front of you?
Well, you notice we talk a lot about the pipelines and the opportunities and how to pitch, but what we don't talk about is the magic of how to create content and how to learn to. Do you guys believe in classes, in workshops, in partnering up with teams? In, you know, how do you keep professionalizing yourself and learning and perfecting what you're creating in an idea as you're waiting to get some of those first steps?
Yeah, so for me, it's I think what I've learned in my own life is that exposure is the only like true mind opener. So like travel, meeting people that you wouldn't otherwise meet. Like the whole reason I got into visual storytelling is that I think that we can only understand each other better by being exposed to each other more. And we can't do that necessarily day to day, or we don't do that. So telling other people's stories is a way to do that. I think it's basically this, or education. These are my philosophies. And I'm not patient enough to be a teacher. So that drive to tell stories in an effort to expose more people to more different people is what keeps me doing this.
I love the filmmaking process. I love filmmaking. I love being on set. I love every single minute that goes into creating a piece of content, from the, you know, inception of the idea to the delivery and to having other people say that they've seen it, or not even hearing anyone say they've seen it, but, you know, seeing it myself out there. So for me, the downs are outweighed by, you know, the process, because I love the process, and then just knowing that other people want to be involved in this world and want to be creating, and I'm in a position in which I can help get other people there and help them live their dreams every day. So that's, I think, what keeps me going.
This is true, and it's freaky. She'll go pick up a lot of gear like an hour away in her car, and like she's happy about it. It's like she really loves that process. It's
why are you letting your PAs be a grip truck? Like, go hire a PA to do it. I'm like, no, the PA can just like learn to be a first AD, and I'll go pick up the gear, because I just
works great for me.
I love it, you know. Like, I'd rather be the one going to get the coffee and having somebody else on set learning a new, you know, skill that helps them further on. But that's what makes me happy, is just doing it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with the process is really what keeps, I think, what we're passionate about and what keeps us going. And I think beyond that is just stories people want to always consume stories and content, and stories, people want to always tell them. So I think the passion of being able to keep doing that and wanting to still do that, because there is always a new story to be told, and, you know, next week it's something else, a month from now it's something else, and we want to be able to talk about it. And I think that's what also keeps us going, is being able to talk about it. And I think that's definitely what keeps me going. And beyond that, just anytime we create a piece of content and are complete it and finish it and launch it, I think the excitement of just the smile on people's faces when they've completed that project or they've completed their season or their episode or whatever it may be, and you know, we've had many stories that and content that didn't perform well and got negative feedback, and then we've had many that have received positive feedback from our users saying, I need more of this content, I need more of these episodes. And I think that's what keeps us going, because it's like, wow, something we just spent a lot of time on here and, you know, we're really excited about, someone responded to emotionally, and that's the biggest driver of why we keep doing this.
I think for me, just believing that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing, that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, because that's how I feel. Like, I see a deficit and I want to create opportunities for myself and for others to be able to tell stories. We're all storytellers, and in a way that I see what I believe is the future. And in a, you know, and being very specific for me, it's like I want to be the HBO of short form, you know, so I think it's really, you know, believing and knowing in your gut that, like, this is your path. And like, for me, I know, you know, starting off as an actress and a screenwriter has only led me up to where I am now. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for the great panelists. And if you have more questions, you can talk to all of us and say hi.